When you're monitoring, you make sure that you're implementing your communication plan. You complete your status reports, make sure the executives, make sure all the different levels have the information as to where you are in your project. What's been delivered, so again, goes back to the planning, you bring that forward. You need to be keeping track of what's going on throughout the phase and reporting on it, holding regular status meetings, completing your weekly status reports or however your company needs those reports to be done. And everyone needs a different report. So monitoring and controlling your risk. Issues will come up. This is when you have to deal with the issues. Key thing is when issues do come up, know who and when. Always ask that question, who and when. Never forget that as a project manager. That's really important with whatever you're delivering on. Who's going to do it? When you're going to give it to me by. And then you manage that. You get their commitment that way.
One of the important aspects of monitoring and control is status reporting. During this time, you want to make sure that status goes back to the stakeholders. Status goes back to the sponsor. They want to know how you're doing in terms of schedule and budget. Likewise, monitoring and control involves budget and schedule. Because if there are scope changes, which goes back to the requirements, then you want to make sure that whatever impact is there to the budget and schedule, that is reported in a status report, which then goes to the management. That gives you, as a project manager, the opportunity to get some decisions, which will then move your project to the next phase.
The monitor controlling phase of a project, to me, consists of three really key components. Risk management comes into play again, where the whole concept of risk management is that you want to proactively prevent the identified risks from becoming project issues. So you want to you have identified through your risk identification exercise and inputs into your risk management plan those risks that can affect your project. Proactively managing risk and monitoring and controlling those risks will make sure that those risks do not become a project issue. How does that happen? Through the risk mitigation strategies or the methodologies that you have identified on the risk register that will allow you to be able to put those methodologies in place or risk mitigation strategies in place to prevent that. In the event that a project risk does become a project issue, it's not a shock to the project manager, it's not a shock to the project team. Why? Because you took the time to plan what that risk response will be. That risk response now is not necessarily reactive, you're just acting on a predetermined plan to be able to address that risk. Monitoring and controlling also consists of a communication aspect, and that is performance reporting, progress reporting. You're going to report back to the stakeholders. Let's say senior management, for an example, may want to understand where you're at in the time baseline, the cost baseline. Most of the time you have many other areas of the project that you're going to need to report on, or it may be in your communication plan that you report monthly, you report bi-weekly, whatever that is that's been identified in the communication plan. During the monitoring and controlling phase, you need to be able to make sure that you're communicating this information, is distributed to the right stakeholders, and that the right information is being communicated. One of the last phases in monitoring and controlling is you need to, you have a deliverable that's being completed, and it needs to be accepted. Who does it need to be accepted by? The client or the sponsor, the individual who initiated the project, the reason why the project was undertaken. Does this deliverable or product, service, or result now meet the needs and the objectives of the project? You need to get formal sign-off from the sponsor or the stakeholder group as a whole prior to moving on to the closed project.